then we have to send out a text message to everybody. Wait a second. So many messages. Okay, and then I will check to make sure that we are streaming. And then I will check that we are streaming. Okay, let me get the guitar. Okay, just got to set up one thing here. Give me 1 second. Mm-hmm. All right. Woo. Hold on 1 second. All right. We are ready to roll. Now, today is the Disappearance Day, or the commemoration of the Disappearance Day of Narottama Madhastakur. So we're going to speaking about him this evening or this morning, depending on where you are. So, of course, he's a great devotee, eternally liberated associate of Lord Chaitanya. And first, we're going to chant the prayers to the departed Vaishnavas, which we usually do. Hold on a second. Get my prayers out. My prayers. So I can read it. Oh, righty. Jayantino Premadana Karuna Pracho Jayantino Premadana Karuna Pracho Hey no Prabhu Kota Kela Kahasanata Kahamurzarupa Kahasanata Kahadasa Raghunatha Patika Bhagwan Kahadasa Raghunatha Patika Bhagwan Kahagavira Kahamura Bhaktayuga Kavira Eka Kale Kutakela Kaguranatura Eka Kale Kutakela Gora Natura Pashane Kutimo Mata Anale Pashivo Pashane Kutimo Mata Anale Pashivo Goranga Gonera Nedi Gotakele Babo Say Sabatam Mirasange Ye Koilobe Say Sabatam Mirasange Ye Koilobe Say Sangana Pai Kane Narottama Say Sangana Pai Kane Narottama Racho Yeah, I need a prema Kona Bracho Jaya Narottama Madhastakur Narottama Madhastakur Narottama Madhastakur Madhastakur Jaya Prabhupada Pada Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Go 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 Hari Go Hari Bo Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paravidgacharya also Tether Sata Shi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Chandra Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakura Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadad Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Saim Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathuram Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Shrimati Lasi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tunamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschatra Dejatari. He who brought the treasure of divine love and who was filled with compassion and mercy, where is such a personality as Srinivasacharya gone? Where by Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami, Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta, and where is Krishna Das Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against the rock and enter into the fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottama Das simply weeps. So, Om Gana Timranasha Garanjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Meditam Yena Tasmai Shigadavai Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master's divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. Okay, let me read this translation. This poem, which Prabhupada instructed us to chant on the disappearance days of great personalities, was actually written by Narottama Das Thakur, and there's a story behind it. He who brought the treasure of divine love and was filled with compassion and mercy. Where is such a personality as Srinivasacharya gone? Where is my Sarup Damodar bkgoswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta, and where is Krishna's Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against the rock and enter into the fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all those devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottama Das simply weeps. The story behind this poem, written by Narottama Das Thakur, is that Narottama Das Thakur was feeling very deeply the separation from his friend, Srinivasacharya, and from his friend Ramchandra Kaviraj, who was a disciple of Srinivasacharya. And feeling that great separation, shortly thereafter he decided to leave this world after they had left this world. So this is a very poignant poem written by Narottama Das Thakur that applies to his particular situation as well as to the situation of all of us when we experience separation from Krishna's pure devotees. So, with that in mind, we are going to talk about Narottama Das Thakur's history. Okay, this is quite an interesting history we have about Narottama Das Thakur. So it involves, first of all, the description of Narottama Das Thakur's spiritual master, who is Lokanath Goswami. And we'll start with that. So Lokanath Goswami, he was an intimate associate of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he was sent to Vrindavan before the 6 Goswamis were sent to Vrindavan to prepare the ground. Lokanath and his best friend, who was named Bhugarba Goswami, and he never saw Lord Chaitanya after Lord Chaitanya took sannyas. Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, and then he heard Lord Chaitanya, this is Lokanath Goswami, then he heard Lord Chaitanya was in South India, so he went there, but Lord Chaitanya had already left and gone to Vrindavan. And then Lokanath went back to Vrindavan, and then he heard that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Prayag, so he wanted to go to Prayag to see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but Lord Chaitanya appeared to him in a dream and said, stay in Vrindavan, we are never separated. Narottama Das Thakur will become your disciple. So this is before Lokanath Goswami met Narottama Das Thakur, or had even heard about him, except from the mouth of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, there's some really interesting miracles about Narottama Das Thakur's Krishna consciousness. So, Narottama Das Thakur appeared in a village called Keturi. And before he appeared, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited Keturi. I just want to mention one thing, is that Narottama Das Thakur is the second generation and Srinivasacharya, and also Shaimananda Prabhu are second generation from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay, just to understand the historical references we're making, or the time sequence. So anyway, so Lord Chaitanya was visiting the appearance place of Narottama Das Thakur before Narottama Das Thakur appeared. That village was called Kituri. And so what happened, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Kituri, he was crying out Narottama Das Thakur's name, even before Lord Narottama Das Thakur was born, or appeared, to be more precise. He was crying, Narottama, 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 Narottama. And so there's an interesting pastime here where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went bathing in the river right next to Ketari, which was known as the Padma River. That's interesting. Padma. Anyway, it was known as the Padma River. Let me just make sure the sound is all right here. Yeah, the sound is fine. Okay, just want to double check to make sure that we're able to hear. Anyway, so he went bathing in the Padma River, and he said, I'm depositing love of God in the Padma River. And he described, because the rivers in India are persons. So, whoops, some problem with the camera. Hold on a second. Hey. Let's see if that solves it. That should solve it. Hold on a second. Let me put the camera back on. Give me 1 second. That should solve the problem. Hold on a second. Okay, that solves the problem. Okay. Anyway, so sorry for the technical glitches. So he said to the Padma River that I'm depositing prema, and you should give this prema to Narottama Das Thakur when he comes to bathe in the Padma River. So later on, Narottama Das Thakur took birth in this village called Kituri, and an astrologer at the time of his birth, and this is why he got the name Narottama Das Thakur, because Narottama means Uttama Nara. So he was the best of all men. So the astrologer predicted he would be the best of all men, or devotees, because devotees are the best of all men. And he showed devotional symptoms even from his very birth. What do I mean? He showed devotional services even from his very devotional symptoms. Sorry, not devotional services. So, what does that mean? That means, hold on a second. That means that he did not eat at his grain ceremony, which they feed the boy or the girl grains for the first time, unless the grains were offered to the deity. His mother and father were known as Raj Krishna Nanda, and Narayani was his mother. And they were the king and queen of that particular area. So they're quite wealthy. And so Narottama Das Thakur, or Narottama at that particular point, had access to all sorts of material amenities, but he was completely disinterested in all these material amenities. So when he arrived at the age of 12 years old, he had a dream, and Lord Nityananda said to him, go to the Padma River, bathe there. So he went to the Padma River, bathed, and of course we understand that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had imbued or empowered the Padma River to give Narottama Das Thakur pure love of God. Of course, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bathing in the Padma River itself caused the Padma River to be the topmost of all the holy places. It was already a holy place, like all the rivers in India are holy places. You know, they're holy. It's an amazing continent because there's so many rivers and so many holy rivers. Just like at one particular point, the devotees collected 1,008 samples of water from all the kundas and holy rivers in India. And I think the devotees are still selling it. So he bathed there, and his complexion changed completely. He was golden at this particular point, like glowing gold. And he became more apathetic to material life. What do I mean by apathetic? He had no emotions for material life, no connection, no attraction. And when his parents saw how he changed, they were complete anxiety. And Narottama was always thinking, even when he was 12, of how to escape from his home, which felt to him like a prison. Because his home was like a prison. He wanted to join Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates, of course. Actually, I believe that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had left this world by that particular point. So he had some association with some of the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One's name was Krishna Das. And Krishna Das related the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates to Narottama Das Thakur. And he also told Narottama Das Thakur about Srinivasacharya. So Srinivasacharya would later on become friends, or one of the friends, of Narottama Das Thakur. And as I mentioned before, it was his departure and the departure of Ramchandra Kaviraj from this world that sort of stimulated Narottama Das Thakur to write this poem to the departed Vaishnavas. So then Narottama Das Thakur had a dream, another dream, and Lord Chaitanya appeared to him in this dream and said, "You will be initiated by Lokanath Goswami." So finally, he escaped from home. This is something like the story of Raghunath Das Goswami, who was able to escape from home, but I think Narottama Das Thakur had an easier time. So he escaped from home, went immediately to Vrindavan. Wow. And by that time, Rupa and Sanatan had passed away, but he actually saw them in a dream. I mean, he was lamenting because he had missed the association of Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, the two primary Goswami followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So they had passed away. And Srinivasacharya was already there. Srinivasacharya, as I mentioned before, is the same generation as Narottama Das Thakur. And so Srinivasacharya had a dream the previous day that Narottama was coming. So he met the remaining Goswamis. Some of them were still there. I believe the Raghunath Das Goswami was still there, and Jiva Goswami was still there. Yes, of course, Jiva Goswami was there. Because Srinivasacharya was getting trained by Jiva Goswami. And so Jiva Goswami was his Shiksha Guru. And also Narottama Das Thakur would later on, a very short time, get training by Jiva Goswami and Shaimananda, who we mentioned before. They were like the same, they weren't the same person, but they were so close. It was almost like they were the same person. They were super close friends. So, what happened is they all got trained by Srila Jiva Goswami in Krishna consciousness and the philosophy, because Jiva Goswami is perhaps the most erudite philosopher, other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's the most erudite philosopher of all time. So not only did they get trained, but they were given a mission. That is, Shaimananda, Narottama Thakur, and Srinivasacharya were given a mission to take the books that the Goswamis had written, or take copies of the books that the Goswamis had written, because obviously they were copies. They didn't have copy machines, but they were copied by hand. So to take those copies to Bengal, because Bengal is basically all the way in the east section of India, and Vrindavan's towards the middle, so west of Bengal. It's quite a long trip. So they decided to take the books, and they took the books, and the books were guarded, and they had, of course, an ox cart. They couldn't get a bus at that time because there were no buses, so there was an ox cart. And as they reached the boundaries of Bengal, those books were stolen by a king who was actually, or a king's men, who was actually a dacoit, because the king understood from his astrologers that whatever was in the ox cart was super valuable, and he thought it was gold. But of course, when the king had the books stolen and he looked in the chest, he saw the books with the writing of Srila Rupa Goswami, which is described, it looks like pearls on a thread. So the king put the books aside and waited for the person who was the owner of the books to come and get the books. And later on, Srinivasacharya came to the king's palace, was speaking in Bhagavatam class, and the king had previously had a dream of Srinivasacharya, and they found the books, and the king became a devotee of Srinivasacharya. And he became such a great devotee, he wouldn't let anybody into the kingdom who wasn't a devotee of Krishna. I mean, sure, he wasn't cruel to people, but everybody had to follow certain rules, like no meat, fish, or eggs, and stuff like that. And Bengal, that's kind of hard to stop people from eating fish, because fish is, according to many people in India, they consider it to be water vegetables. So anyway, the King Viraham Vira, means heroic, very heroic king, became a disciple of Srinivasacharya, and also the king's wife, the queen, became a disciple. So in the meantime, while Srinivasacharya was preaching to this king, Narottama Thakur and Shaimananda went their separate ways. Shaimananda went to Orissa to preach Krishna consciousness, and Narottama Thakur was visiting Navadvip Dham. So Navadvip Dham, of course, Navadvip is the place where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared and enacted his childhood pastimes. So while Narottama Thakur was visiting Navadvip Dham, he had a vision. And in that vision, it's called a spurti, the technical word is spurti. He saw Navadvip exactly as it was when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was present. And he had a vision of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So then later, after he had this vision, as he entered Navadvip area, Navadvip means 9 islands, especially Mayapur, where our world headquarters is, he visited Janava and Vasudha. So, Janava and Vasudha. And also Vishnu Priya, too. Vishnu Priya, who was Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, I would say, widow at that particular point. Because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas when she was quite young, about 16 years of age. So anyway, so he got her blessings, but then he visited Janava and Vasudha, who are the eternal consorts of Lord Nityananda. And he visited them in the place of Lord Nityananda, which is called Chakra. And that's a few hours away from our Sridham Mayapur. And while he was there, a Brahmin, who was actually Lord Nityananda in disguise, guided Narottama Thakur around Ekachakra and showed Narottama Thakur all the different wonderful pilgrimage places and remembrances of Lord Nityananda. And some of the biographies describe that this guide, who is disguised as a Brahmin, he manifested himself at the very end as Balaram Nityananda, because when you know that Lord Nityananda and Balaram Hoila Nitai, Lord Nityananda is actually Balaram. They're the same personality of Godhead. Just like Krishna appeared as Lord Chaitanya in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So then he went back to his birthplace, which was Kitari, which you probably remember. And there he had a dream that there were deities in what they call a go-down. Go-down doesn't mean to go down. A go-down is like a warehouse. So it was a warehouse which had rice, a lot of rice. But the owner or no one could actually take the rice out of the warehouse, because it's described that there were vicious snakes inside that warehouse. You know, venomous snakes inside. So nobody had the courage to go in there. Of course, we understand that probably those snakes were expansions of Ananta guarding what was in there. So in that dream, Ketari, Narottama Thakur had a dream that in that go-down there were deities. And so he went to the owner of the go-down and said, "Can I go in there and look to see and find the deities?" And the owner said, "No, please don't. You're going to get bitten. It's very, very dangerous." And Narottama Thakur, he said, "Don't worry, Krishna will protect me." So he went in there, and basically they found 6 deities, and 2 of the deities, and there were Radha Krishna deities too, 2 of the deities were deities of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Vishnu Priya. Wow. Amazing. And the snakes, they just slithered away. They didn't run, because snakes don't run, obviously. And so he arranged a big festival for Gaur Purnima. And some of the biographers describe that this was the first major festival for Gaur Purnima. There were actually smaller festivals. I mean, for example, this one devotee, Hridaya Chaitanya, who later on became Hridayananda, had invited some people to a festival. But this is the actual first really major festival. And during this festival, what happened is that Janava Mata, who was the wife of Lord Nityananda, came, and of course Shaimananda and Srinivasacharya came to this festival, and all the Mahants means great personalities, came to partake in this festival in which the deities were installed. And there's many, many descriptions, especially in the Bhakti Ratnakara, about the holy festival. Janava Mata was the senior Vaishnava at that particular festival, and so she cooked for people, she arranged everything, and she was given the utmost respect by everybody. There's wonderful descriptions in these books about how they received her, how they followed her when she left, and so she was a guru, and is a guru. And so, she's a lady, I mean, the consort of the Lord, I mean, Shakti, and so she was guru. And so these deities were installed during the festival. And one interesting thing, amazing not only interesting thing occurred was that during the kirtan, and Narottama Thakur was renowned for his Leela kirtans, in which he would actually chant the pastimes, about the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So during this kirtan, as well as chant Hare Krishna, of course, Lord Chaitanya, who had previously left this world, and the associates who had previously left this world, appeared and were dancing in the middle of the kirtan. Then, when the kirtan ended, Lord Chaitanya and his associates disappeared, and everyone was morose, but it was a miraculous occasion. Amazing, amazing story. So after this, and I mentioned holy, the devotees were throwing powders at each other, just having a good time. I mean, it's, in Krishna consciousness, you can have fun. I mean, because Krishna consciousness is always fun. I understand that. Well, I should understand that. It's always fun, but there's no barrier to having fun in Krishna consciousness. Even things like throwing colors and everything like that. In Fiji, we actually had these amazing holy festivals. And I miss that. You know, I really like to go there. I have an old dhoti, and anyway, wear that. So, what happened is that after this festival, the ritualistic brahmanas, who considered that only people born in a Brahmin family could do spiritual activities or could be brahmanas, which is actually runs that understanding or misunderstanding runs counter to what Krishna says in the Gita. Krishna in the Gita says, Chaturvadha bhajanti mam. No, that's the wrong verse. Chaturvarna maya shrishtam guna karma vibhagasha. Sorry, that's the right verse. That one is known to be a particular varna, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, according to his qualities and work. But the Brahmanas complained. They were worried that their monopoly was going to be hurt, and that would hurt them financially. So, because Narottama Thakur was born in a Shudra family, even though his father and mother were king and queen, still was considered a Shudra family. It was like Kayashta at that particular point. Kayashta means generally considered Shudra. So they went to complain to the king at that time. The king's name was Natasingha, nice name. And these scholars, particularly one scholar named Rupa Narayan Chakravarti, went to defeat Narottama Thakur, because that was the system at that time. If you could challenge someone to an argument and defeat them, they basically had to surrender to you, and even become your disciple. Wow. So they wanted to challenge Narottama Thakur, but Narottama Thakur's associates and disciples had a plan. And that plan was, especially Ramchandra Kaviraj and Ganga Narayan Chakravarti, who was Narottama Thakur's disciple. Ramchandra Kaviraj was a disciple of Srinivasacharya, as we mentioned before. They went to the village through which Rupa Narayan, the scholar, was going to pass on the way to Kaituri, okay? And there they put on the disguise of being shopkeepers. Just ordinary shopkeepers like pawn and whatever else they're going to sell. So what happened is Rupa Narayan, on the way to defeat Narottama Thakur, stopped in this village before Kaituri. And Rupa Narayan was buying some things. Obviously you have to eat or chew pan or whatever they do. And the shopkeepers, who were Kavirajas and Chakravartis, highly placed scholars, began to speak to him in high Sanskrit. And Rupa Narayan was like, oh my God. He asked them, how did you learn the Sanskrit? Who is your guru? And they replied, Narottama Thakur. So Rupa Narayana got really worried at that particular juncture. He was thinking, oh my God, if he's the guru and these are his disciples, and the disciples defeated me, I'm in trouble. That night, before he got to see Narottama Thakur, Rupa Narayan, who was going to challenge Narottama Thakur, had a dream. And in this dream, Durga appeared to him. And Durga said, I'm going to kill you unless you surrender to Narottama Thakur. And so, oh my God. So he surrendered, and King Narasimha, who had sent Rupa Narayan, also surrendered, and the queen also surrendered, and they all got initiated. And Rupa Narayan also became one of the primary disciples of Narottama Thakur. Amazing, amazing story. Amazing, amazing, amazing story. Okay. So here's an interesting story. Once upon a time, this is a story illustrating Narottama Thakur's mercy and compassion. That once upon a time, there was a king in Bengal. I believe his name was Raghavendra Roy, anyway. And his son was a dacoit. That means a murderer, robber, and everything like that. The son had a big army. He would do all sorts of violence and abominable acts. And he even surpassed Jagai and Madai in his sinful activities. And he was a devotee of goddess Durga. And he used to offer her thousands of animals in sacrifice. Yo-wee. But he became possessed by a Brahmin ghost who tortured him from within and without. And he used to keep rolling on the ground, suffering like anything, miserably. No one could help him. His father tried everything. And an astrologer told his father, Raghavendra Roy, that your son can only be relieved with the help of a great devotee named, guess who? Narottama Thakur. So the king sent a message to Narottama Thakur, but it didn't reach him at that time. Finally, this Chandra, the son of the king, was on the verge of death, and he cried for the goddess Durga, and she said, I'm tired of you. I'll never accept anything from you. So your only hope is to take shelter of Narottama Thakur. You should approach him. So Narottama Thakur received this message, and Lord Chaitanya came to him, and Narottama Thakur said, please give your mercy to this Chandra. So give him initiation as Krishnadas. Oh my God, amazing. So Narottama Thakur reached the body of Chandra, and seeing Narottama Thakur, the ghost began to speak, the ghost inside Chandra's body. Please deliver me, and let me take birth as one of your associates. So he was delivered, the ghost was delivered, and Chandra surrendered himself at the lotus feet of Narottama Thakur, and Narottama Thakur instructed him in the science of Krishna consciousness. Later on, Chandra had so many saintly qualities, came back to his kingdom, but an envious king, taking advantage of Chandra's saintly qualities, attacked him and arrested him. He was beating him up and imprisoned him. He wanted to kill him. So Chandra's father, Raghavendra Roy, offered rewards to anyone who could save his son from prison. And then there was a tantric there. And this tantric said, I can save him, no problem. So the tantric accepted this offer, and he spirited himself into the prison where Chandra was. And he said, I can take you out of prison. Just chant this mantra of Kali, Durga Kali. Chandra replied to him, I will never chant any demigod mantra again. My spiritual master, save me. I deserve all this suffering. Just tell my father that my only anxiety is separation from my spiritual master, Narottama Thakur. Amazing, amazing story. Then, in prison, Chandra was condemned to be trampled under an elephant. So this elephant was coming up to Chandra to just like trample him to death. And Chandra just grabbed hold of the trunk, that's the nose of the elephant, and pulled out the trunk. And they, obviously, if you elephant loses his trunk, he's dead. And so the envious king, who had actually imprisoned Chandra, said, where did you get this power? And Chandra said, my spiritual master has saved me. It is only by his power that I have been able to do this. So he gave all credit to Narottama Thakur. And then he later returned to the association of Narottama Thakur. It's an amazing story. Okay. So there's many, many stories about Narottama Thakur. One of the stories I told in the beginning was Narottama Thakur's relationship with Chandra Chakravarti, and Srinivasacharya was so close that when he heard that Chandra Chakravarti and Srinivasacharya had left this world, they were in Vrindavan when they left this world. So he got the message, I guess a messenger came back. And when Narottama Thakur heard this, he thought, I'm going to leave this world. I cannot live in this world without the association of my dear friends. So, it's described that one previous to this, Narottama Thakur and Ramchandra Chakravarti were together, and Narottama Thakur ordered Ramchandra Chakravarti to go to see his wife and family. And Ramchandra Chakravarti got about 20 meters away, that means 20 yards approximately, and he couldn't go any further. And he started sweeping the temple. And Narottama Thakur went out and he saw that Ramchandra Chakravarti had not actually gone home. And so Ramchandra Chakravarti felt so guilty, he began to hit himself with the broom which he was using to sweep the temple. And Narottama Thakur actually felt pain. He felt the pain of Ramchandra Chakravarti, his close friend, and he rushed up to him and said, please don't hit me. You're hitting me. You're causing me pain. So this is how inseparable they were. So Narottama Thakur decided to leave this world. So the way he was going to leave this world, which was not the final way he left this world, was quite interesting. He climbed up on a funeral pyre. A funeral pyre is like a pile of wood, which is later ignited to cremate the body. So, but still, he was still in this world. So he climbed up on this funeral pyre and went into meditation. And he was on the funeral pyre for 3 days. They didn't set fire, obviously, but he was going to leave his body in meditation and samadhi and go to Krishna. So, but what happened is that this Ganga Narayan Chakravarti, who we mentioned before, who took shelter of him, was going to challenge him before, but he actually took shelter and was his disciple. Ganga Narayan Chakravarti pleaded, don't do this because it's going to cause the Brahmanas to criticize you. They're going to say this is very inauspicious and it's good. Your whole mission is going to be damaged if you do this. So, when you leave, you should leave in an auspicious way. I mean, it's always auspicious, not inauspicious, but you should leave it in a way that people will appreciate more. So Narottama Thakur, hearing the prayers of Gangadharaya and Chakravarti, stood up. He was getting ready to leave this world in Samadhi. So he stood up. And as he stood up, a golden Brahman thread manifested on him. And he chanted, Radha Krishna Chaitanya. And so, remember that Narottama Thakur was not born in a Brahmin family. It's considered a Shudra family. So he didn't have a Brahmin thread. That was the tradition at that time. Even if you were a first-class Vaishnava, you didn't have a Brahmin thread. In fact, in many instances, when people became Vaishnavas, even if they were born in Brahmin families, they would cut off their Brahmin threads because they wanted to show that Vaishnavism is transcendental to social distinctions. Now, why do we have Brahmin threads? The reason we have Brahmin threads is for preaching purposes. And that was established by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, so people would respect us as being Brahmins. And a Vaishnava is automatically a Brahmin. One who knows Brahman, that's the definition of being a Brahmin. So that's the direct definition, not someone who is ritualistic, not someone who is born in a certain family or whatever. So, a short time after that, he actually left this world. And how he left this world was quite interesting. And not even quite interesting, it was a miracle. So, he was asking his disciples, as they were bathing in the Ganges, to pour Ganges water over his head and massage him. And as they were doing that, his body dissolved and became like a milky substance in the Ganges. And the disciples actually saved that milky substance. It's called Dugda. And they made a samadhi from that. And it's called the Dugda Samadhi of Narottama Thakur. Very, very interesting. So his contribution, so that's how he left this world. So his contribution was of several types of things. He contributed important aspects of devotional service. He was the exponent of different types of kirtan, Vaishnava songs. His primary literatures are called the Prarthana, Prema Bhakti Chandrika, and some other works. He was able to give the common people connection with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What do I mean by that? Well, generally, before, you had to really be a Sanskrit scholar. But he presented the information and poetry and, all sorts of music in what we call the vernacular. Now, if you don't know what the word vernacular means, that means the ordinary language. Like in America, the vernacular is English. If I start to speak in Latin, which I can't do, few people will understand me. That's why the church, many years ago, the Catholic Church, changed a lot of its liturgy, ceremonies, into English, or the language wherever they were preaching. English, French, Spanish, etc., like that. That's called the vernacular. So Narottama Thakur really presented the entire philosophy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the vernacular, common Bengali language. Although you had books like the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, which were written in Bengali, but they were written in very high Bengali, which is sometimes called Sarubash, rather than in common Bengali. So he actually presented things in common Bengali, and to this day, people all over Bengal, and practically all over India, the Krishna conscious movement, are enamored by Narottama Thakur's songs. You can go into Bengal and you'll hear his songs being sung in practically every village, because he brought Krishna consciousness to the common person in Bengal. So, That's the story of Narottama Thakur. We actually ended on time, which is pretty good. And so we can take some questions or comments. We unmute you all. I thought it was quite interesting about Narottama Thakur. Does anyone have any questions or comments? You're allowed to unmute yourselves now. Okay, Brajalila. Okay, what's your question or comment?
Hi, Welsh. Really good day. Please accept my obeisances. This isn't like about class, but it's about philosophy. I hope that's okay. I
Yeah.
I'm kind of confused on how we say that when you advance in Krishna consciousness, none of that advancement is lost. But at the same time, um, we already are Krishna conscious beings at our core. And
Yeah.
so really it's just about uncovering it. But
Yes.
of course it does get covered back up. So what does it mean? What's the distinction between the advancement and like the uncovering and like what
So
does it
that
mean that we
means
don't
that
lose it?
your path towards completely uncovering yourself becomes further enhanced and you don't lose it.
But what if you went back into material life? It's like
You
you
you forget it for some time. It's put into abeyance. And then it's easily remembered. It's not like
mm,
starting from scratch.
so you kind of just pick back up.
Yes. Yes, you just pick back up where you left off. But someone reminds you, like you're born again and you see the devotees chanting Hare Krishna, and then, wow, that's where I'm supposed to be. That's why you see some people join the Krishna conscious movement and they're very advanced even from the beginning uh,
Mm.
because of that. So it's quicker than had you started again from scratch. Okay?
How to Yes, thank you. To what extent does it become covered though? Is it just kind of a
As much as
superficial
you,
covering?
yeah, it's superficial, but as much as you cover yourself.
Hmm.
That depends on how much you cover.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
How'd it go?
Hare Krishna.
So, Rishikesh,
Hare Krishna,
you have a
this is Gurudev. Uh,
how'd
can
it
you hear
go?
me?
Yeah,
Hello.
I can hear you fine. Can you hear
Uh,
me?
okay. I just wanted to understand, Gurudev, in this Padma River, Srila Narottama Das Thakur got that elixir or something of prema. What is it, allegorical or something? What is this, Gurudev? How can it be something liquid or something, you know?
Well, it's arranged by Lord Chaitanya. I mean, it's highly highly unusual, but like even if you bathe in the Ganges, then you're actually getting some spiritual enlivenment,
So,
right?
do we have access to that kind of elixir? We can,
If Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wants, you can have that.
but why is it so difficult to get it then?
Uh, because you don't want it.
No, no, I want it, Gurudev.
Ah, no, but your anchor is there. It's like that story.
So the problem is,
That story,
if
the
I
Bhakti.
don't get it, my anchor will not be there at all.
It's a story,
It's
the
catch
Bhakti.
22, what comes first?
You know that story, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur told the story about the marriage party that was trying to cross the river and they were rowing all night long and they didn't get anywhere because the anchor was still there. So as long as we have our anchor in this material world, then it's going to be very slow. Our progress is going to be very slow.
But unless I get higher test, Gurudev, how can I artificially remove this anchor? I mean, it's not going to
That's up to
happen.
you. I mean, you have to pray to Krishna. You have to take the association of devotees. You have to avoid bad association. And that way you'll get a higher taste. I mean, you're here because you have some sort of higher taste anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some sort. You wouldn't be here unless you had a higher taste. You know? Otherwise, you'd be worshiping Durga still. I mean, anybody who takes part in the Christian conscious movement has to have a little bit of a higher taste, a little bit of realization. All right?
So did Narottam Das Thakur put that elixir somewhere in a secret place, or is it just in his songs?
It's in his songs.
Oh, okay.
If you associate with Narottama Das Thakur, you will actually vibe that mood. Okay?
Yep. Thank you, Gurudev.
Thank you. Okay, so here's a question from Shama Priya. Narottama Das Thakur is generally known as the Gopi Champaka Manjari. Anyway, and there may be different opinions about that, but he's generally known as the Gopi Champaka Manjari in the spiritual world. Okay, we have time for one more quick question. If anyone has a question, if not, we can end. So it was a very ecstatic experience I've had relating about Narottama Das Thakur. As you can see, I really like Narottama Das Thakur. I always meditate on his poetry, which is inspiring because it's written for the common person, and we are common persons. So and Bhaktivinoda Thakur too. I would say Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Narottama Das Thakur's songs are the ones that I really meditate on. You know, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has so many songs. I mean, other devotees like Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami with Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Vrindavana. And, you know, there's other devotees. I'm looking at the songbook. Gauranga Tutipada is Narottama Das Thakur's song. I mean, so many nice songs. I mean, this is not a Narottama Das Thakur songbook. This is a general songbook. Lala Samai, Gauranga, Balite Habe, Baro Karuna, Koro, Vaishnava Gosai. So many nice songs. And also, Shiguru Charana Padma, Kevala Bhakati Sadma, Vadanwe Savadana Mate is a song by Narottama Das Thakur, which we chant every morning in the temple. So, thank you very, very much. Thank you for attending class. All glories to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada.